Fighting Liberal, the Autobiography of George W. Norris, 2nd edition. Introduction to the new Bison Books edition, by Bob Kerrey. I do not know for certain what motivated newspaper editor James E. Lawrence, a very interesting character himself, to push George Norris to write this book. It must have been a desire to record the history of Norris's 40 years in the Congress, for Senator Norris's accomplishments are substantial. He achieved more than any other Nebraskan who has served there. The benefits of his work continue to be felt today. The laws he helped write made America more productive, safe, and just. However, the worthiness of this book lies less in its contribution to an understanding of history than in its use as a training manual for those who seek to serve in the public arena. The habits of Norris, the values of Norris, and the attitude of Norris are worthy of emulation. The success of democracy, and our experiment in self-government, depends on a lot more than ideas, eloquence, or charisma. Democracy needs men and women who value competency, effort, and the development of the skills needed to do the work. So the hope that guides my writing is that the person who is holding this book and reading these words is a young person. Perhaps you have been required to read this book for a class on history or politics, or, better yet, for a first-year class in law school. Perhaps you have just been hired to work as a congressional staffer or have an ambition to serve in Washington yourself. If so, the lessons offered by George Norris will help you do your job well. Just maybe, you might use Norris's stories and the values that are woven throughout to become a great senator as he became. Oh, how this republic of ours needs that to happen. This is not an autobiography or memoir that contains extensive self-examination or analysis. Norris gives us a paragraph or two to tell us about the deaths of his father and brother. Either could have been a moment to reflect on the progress of modern medicine or the advance of civilized living since his father died of pneumonia after chasing down a runaway horse, and his brother died of an infection following a seemingly minor wound suffered as a Union soldier in the Civil War. The understatement of the personal was an important value of Norris, but in the hands of today's readers it might be a turnoff. By today's standards, the book is a little too dry and boring. He doesn't take enough time to tell us about the tragedies and losses of his life. There are only a few pages given over to the effort of making it obvious that he came a long way and overcame a great deal. Norris was born in Ohio during the summer of 1861, the first year of the Civil War. He died in McCook, Nebraska in the fall of 1944, the last year of the Second World War. He finished this book 8 weeks before his death. And if you are a reader with an ambition for public service, you are lucky he did. For the example of his life, there are a number of important lessons learned. I will extract a half-dozen from among many. First, learn the rules. Norris learned and practiced the rules of parliamentary procedure beginning when he was a boy. You may not like the rules, and Norris clearly did not, but until you change them, and Norris changed many, including our Constitution, knowledge of the rules is a great source of power. And if you intend to use power to benefit the people you serve, this is knowledge you will use over and over again to good purpose. Second, make your own rules and live by them. Norris had rules about writing. He wrote all his own letters. He had rules about speeches on the Senate floor. He prepared but only read a speech once. He carefully researched those issues he chose to debate, and did not debate if time or interest left him short of facts. The personal research Norris did gave him extraordinary authority in debates. The 1932 Norris-LaGuardia anti-injunction legislation, which established a federal right of an employee to join a union and prevented so-called yellow dog contracts, was preceded by a considerable amount of work. The work was necessitated by the moral outrage he felt about the way workers were treated on the job. While campaigning in Pennsylvania against a candidate of his own party who he believed was corrupt, Norris met a coal miner whose story moved him. What he saw was wrong, and he wanted to do something about it. But he didn't rush back to Washington and ask his staff to prepare a bill. In the words he gave a great deal of attention to that subject long before formulating legislation to deal with it. I studied it to the best of my ability. I followed the developments in investigations that already had taken place, covering a period of 8 years of research and legislative fight before an adequate law was enacted. He chaired a subcommittee that held extensive hearings during which he heard every syllable of testimony that was given. Unlike today, where oral testimony is limited to 5 minutes, no time limitations were imposed. Anyone who wanted to appear would be heard, and cross-examination of witnesses was permitted by either side. After the subcommittee produced a proposed law, they persuaded constitutional scholars to spend 2 full days examining the law to make certain that it would pass constitutional muster and survive a likely court challenge. It is true that today's Congress would get a lot less done if every topic were given this kind of thorough examination. It is also true that whatever they got done would be of higher, more durable quality. Norris accomplished a lot because he allowed himself to be moved by things he believed were wrong and needed to be changed. He accomplished a lot because he was fearless in taking on vested political and economic interests in pursuit of change. He accomplished a lot because he did the necessary, time-consuming, and unglamorous work of assembling facts before he began any effort to change the Constitution or the law. Third, don't give up. Norris persevered through long periods of reaction, public apathy, hostile opposition to his ideas, and legislative trickery designed to slow him down or prevent him from succeeding. It was 10 years before he saw the passing of the 20th Amendment, which ended the lame dunk congressional session, and very nearly as long before the Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA, the first comprehensive development of a U.S. river, was signed into law. Fourth, remain true to yourself. Norris wrote his own letters, made up his own mind what needed to be done, had a strong commitment to a personal code, and did not yield to the allure of flattery. He acquired a lawyer's mind, and applied a frontiersman's discipline to the work of writing laws. He was familiar with despondency, frustration, and bitter disappointment. But he never lost an abiding faith in the people themselves, even when they voted him out of office in 1942 after 36 years in the Senate and 4 in the House of Representatives. Fifth, look for unlikely allies and arguments in favor of something you believe needs to be done. Look for simple reasons to do complicated things. This was his foundational thinking about the TVA. I knew falling water, when properly harnessed, generated what some, for want of a better name, have called electricity. In secret, even in the electrical age, which is dawning, is but partially known and understood science, but its service to mankind is recognized, relieving men and women of drudgery which cannot be discharged in any other way. It drives the machines of production. It's true the battle line was clearly drawn between public and private ownership of the development, with Norris fervently in favor of the public's right to own the project. However, Norris saw tremendous commercial and national security benefits. The electricity from the dams could be used to separate nitrogen from the air around us. In the First World War, which Norris opposed as considerable risk to his 1918 election, it became clear we needed a domestic source for nitrates. So he began to make the case that the electricity would make explosives in times of war and fertilizer in times of peace. Sixth, remember your home. Norris was an Ohioan by birth, who came to Nebraska and fell in love with the place. He never lost that love, and it affected and shaped everything he did. And most important of all, build something beyond your lifetime. That was the advice Norris's mother gave him when they planted a fruit tree together. Someone other than you will enjoy the benefits of this planting, long after you are gone, even if they do not credit you with the planting. Others will enjoy the benefits of your labor. Norris took that advice to heart, and all of us are the beneficiaries.